Hello and welcome back. Thank you for clicking this video. And so last video we went over kind of like the services between your big box hearing aids, your Costco's, your Sam's Club, and what's the difference between those retails versus professional audiologists and what you're able to get, right? And it really came down to those services and relationships and the service not only once you get it, but going on the entire lifespan, your lifespan, the lifespan of the device. But now we're going to dig a little deeper on over-the-counter devices. So, really looking at what's the difference between those over-the-counter hearing aids and your prescription hearing aids, what you get from a professional. So, and again, we're joined with Dr. Christy Moore of Sonora Hearing Care in Tucson. Christy, welcome.
Hey, hi.
Awesome. So we're just gonna jump right into this, right? So
Yeah,
really talk to me about over-the-counter hearing aids. Like where did this idea even spawn from? And what kind of legislation did it go through? So please speak to me about this.
sure. So the Over-the-Counter Act of 2017 went into effect in October of 2022. And this came out when before 2017, when a group of scientists, the PCAST, did an evaluation on hearing aids, hearing devices, looked at the possibility, could people get some type of hearing aid over the counter instead of going through prescription? And so what their consensus was is they came up with, they did a lot of evidence, a lot of interpretation, and looked at a lot of different factors and decided that yes, this would be something that could be safe for adult consumers. And so that's kind of how this whole thing came to play. So during President Trump's first administration, he signed this act into law in 2017 that would allow a class of hearing aids to be considered over the counter so that you could get them mild to moderate hearing loss. You didn't have to have a hearing test. You didn't have to go to an audiologist or hearing instrument specialist, but you could buy these devices just off the shelf at any retail type store. And that was signed into law, and then effectively went into law in October of 2022. And so a lot of stores now, you can see that, go in there and you can buy these devices just over the counter, just off the shelf. You can program them. Some have an app, some don't. Some are rechargeable, some are not. And so they have limitations compared to like prescription hearing aids, but it allows someone who is perceiving that they have a hearing difficulty being able to buy something without having to go see an audiologist or hearing instrument specialist.
I do like so this is interesting, right? When you said that, really moderate to minimal hearing loss.
Right.
Can those actually worsen somebody's hearing, right? If they're too loud, if they're not calibrated correctly? Like, is there something there that says, well, yeah, I have moderate, but there's no, I know we've discussed this in the past about almost a therapeutic
Right.
scaling of sound. Can that if affect somebody's hearing and honestly make it worse?
Yes, it possibly could. And that's kind of one of the things I know that was, when it was in consideration, there were a lot of our professional organizations, and audiology had some opportunities to send some guidelines. And we wanted to make sure that there were some limiters put in place that would not allow sound to get louder than a certain point. However, I don't think that was taken into account by all of the manufacturers. And so you're right, there may be some limitations in some of them, and there may not be that limiter in some of them. So again, depending on how mild your hearing loss is, if you turn it up too loud, you could theoretically do further damage. If your hearing loss is more severe, and you turn it up a certain loudness point, you could still do some damage, but the likelihood is you're not going to get enough hearing help versus too much hearing help. But again, we don't know to what extent the amounts of sound are, unless we actually do some measurement with those devices.
Interesting. Okay, so you've kind of told us what they are, right? And some limitations there. Can you tell me what they're not, compared to hearing aids that you get from a
Yeah.
professional audiologist?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's about 6 or 7 main name brands of prescription hearing aids that are on the market that are dispensed solely to audiologists and hearing instrument specialists. So that's the only way that a consumer with hearing loss can get those devices. They have to come to a licensed professional like myself, and we are the customer to the hearing aid manufacturer, and we purchase that device and then dispense it with our services to the patient or the consumer. Those devices have a lot of research and development. Most of those companies have been around 75, 80 years. Most of them are global, so they have headquarters all over the world, and they have specific research and development to look at strategies where the chips are produced, and frequency gain, noise reduction, speech enhancement, all of those wonderful features are put into those devices. And we can program them on a computer using specialized software. And we put in a hearing loss, we can make those adjustments, we can verify the fitting, make sure that a person is getting that accurate amount of sound based on their individual hearing loss.
Okay, so really a lot of the technology, right, and that personal care and combining, fine tuning those instruments. Um, Now, and you mentioned kind of the brands that you guys are that you guys have at your disposal. And would you be able to like answer going like, okay, there is more research and technology that goes into particular hearing aids versus an over-the-counter?
Right. So a lot of the prescription hearing aids, which is the class of hearing aids that have always been on the market and are FDA approved. So those have very specific guidelines and qualifications that they have to go through. If they make a claim that we can reduce background noise by a certain amount, they have to show proof of that. They have to be able to show what their algorithm that is built into the chip of the hearing aid is able to do when certain sounds come in, and what effect that's going to have on the end consumer. So, if a person has a certain hearing loss and they have trouble understanding speech, what is the algorithm of that hearing aid doing to enhance that speech sound that's coming in? What is it doing? Is it actually enhancing certain frequencies? Is it amplifying certain regions? Is it reducing gain? Is it increasing gain? What is it doing specifically to help that person hear easier than they do without the hearing device?
So we if we look at, let's say, an over-the-counter brand like Audien,
Yeah.
what are the features and benefits of that of a professional audiologist device versus something like the Audien hearing?
Yeah. So any type of professional hearing aid or hearing device is going to have the ability to be programmed specifically to a person's hearing loss. So that software is the same no matter if you to one hearing aid hearing care professional versus another hearing care professional. We all have access to that software. Therefore, we can program the hearing aid, put in the hearing loss, and it has these algorithms and features in there that allows us to put in a certain amount of gain, speech enhancement, noise reduction features, um, all different things that can be paired to Bluetooth, that type of thing. So this is all part of the knowledge of saying, like, we're going to make sure that this hearing aid is programmed specifically that you're getting the right amount of hearing help where you need it. You're not getting too much, too little. And we're also going to be able to verify that fitting, how much sound is actually being amplified in your ear. So there's no guesses and there's no danger of you getting too much or too little.
Are all of these the brands that I can walk into a big box, you're right, a Sam's Club, a Costco? Are all of these brands like Audien and even looking at Jabra, are those all the brands that they offer, or are these taken to a next level, something similar to which, as we were discussing off camera, kind of blew my mind, where Apple's AirPod Pros are considered
Yeah.
an over-the-counter hearing aid.
Exactly. So anything that is like over the counter devices are not going to be the same name brand hearing aids that you're going to get from a hearing care professional. A lot of these are recognized names that the consumers might recognize as, high quality sound devices. So like you've got Sennheiser, you've got Audion, you've got Jabra, you've got Bose, or at least you used to have Bose, you don't anymore. But all of those have some name recognition because they're already in consumer electronics. So some of them have gotten into the over-the-counter hearing aid space as well because they have that name brand recognition. But yes, a lot of places like Costco, Walmart's, CVS Pharmacy, any of your retail stores are probably going to have some sort of over-the-counter device on their shelf, usually over by the wherever the other consumer electronic devices might be or the pharmacies. And those are something you can literally just go up, take it off the shelf, go check out, and you're good to go. They may have usually a consumer phone number that you can call. They've got, videos or whatever that you can walk you through on how to set up those devices, how to put them in your ears, things like that. If they're Bluetooth compatible, they'll have an app usually that you can set up that way. So they are truly a self-fitting option. So that means that you're not going to have care and support from going to an audiologist or hearing instrument specialist. That also means you're not going to be able to take those devices to an audiologist or hearing instrument specialist if you have an issue, because those are devices that we don't have software for. They're not programmable. They're not prescription based.
And I guess, do you also run into the same issue that we just kind of pointed out before of those could damage your hearing, or is it almost like a one size fits all? Are they able to adjust anything like that?
Yeah, and it depends on the devices. Most of them are rechargeable too, which a lot of prescription devices are. So that's something that a lot of people are wanting as a rechargeable option. We have rechargeable phones, we have rechargeable computers, we have everything that's an electronic device, headsets, pagers, all that type of stuff we have. It's just a part of what we do now. So it's not a big deal to have one more device that's rechargeable. Um, so that's definitely an appeal for a lot of consumers. But honestly, depending on the device, depending on if it has an app compatible with like a smartphone or a tablet, there may be some limitations that you can do. You might be able to turn up the volume, turn down the volume. You might be able to make some adjustments to the treble, the bass, the mids, that type of thing. You might be able to turn on noise reduction, turn it off. Again, depends on the how fancy the device is, how complex it is, and but as far as that goes, you can do a lot of those things with prescription devices. But again, when you do that with an over-the-counter device, you're usually not putting in any type of a hearing test. And if you are, it's not getting that precise with programming those frequencies exactly the same way that a prescription hearing aid is designed to do.
Interesting. And so you just kind of mentioned a hearing test. Do all of these devices offer a hearing test? Some do, some don't, and kind
Some
of
do,
run me
some
through a
don't.
hearing test, because I know you mentioned that
Right.
Apple just included a
Yeah.
hearing test through their AirPods.
Right. So you can go into the feature, which is like their hearing aid feature on an Apple phone, and it allows you to go in and customize the Apple AirPods Pro 2. You can take a hearing test through your AirPods on your smartphone. Again, it's going to depend on the accuracy of how quiet the room is around you, how things are as far as that goes, as to how accurate that hearing test is going to be. Some of them don't require any type of hearing test at all. Again, which is the whole purpose of having an over-the-counter hearing aid, is you don't have to have a hearing test. You don't have to have medical clearance to get these devices.
That's interesting that somebody would actually g- go buy, a hearing aid over the counter and not actually go through that test. So let's retouch base on that test, especially through Apple. Let's say,
Yeah.
right, I'm a big Apple user.
Yep.
I'm
Me
getting
too.
older, right? I'm getting up in years, and I decide to take this test, and it shows that I have poor hearing. Like,
Mhm.
is there like a warning? Does Apple say, hey, you need to contact a professional? Does the iP do the AirPods, like, do they themselves like somehow enhance
Yeah.
on my score? Like, how does that all work?
Well, from what I understand, and kind of doing a little bit of preliminary investigating on the Apple AirPods Pro, um, basically what it's supposed to do is that if you have a certain amount of hearing loss over a numerical number that is programmed into the algorithm of this feature, it's supposed to tell you, okay, you have more hearing loss than what would be recommended for this device, and it recommends that you go get a hearing test done by a hearing care professional. So it does have that, and that's, I think, what all of the OTC devices are supposed to do is have some kind of warning, you might say, but that doesn't mean that you can't move forward and continue using those devices. It's not going to stop you from doing that, but it is going to at least let you know that, hey, there may be a reason that you need to go see a healthcare professional instead of doing this all on your own.
Well, I'm glad that they're supposed to be built in. I'm glad they're still saying, "Hey, go see a trained medical professional, as an audiologist." Um,
Right.
and hopefully, that individual that's buying that listens and actually
Yeah.
goes and sets up that appointment.
Hopefully. I mean, we're hoping that especially like with Apple, because Apple is such, a renowned name in the hearing tech and phone and computer, space, that people will trust that, especially if that comes from them, and do seek, the advice of a hearing care professional.
They're so involved with the medical field, it's themselves that
Right.
they would do that. So some of the things that I've always been just kind of blown away by with hearing aids is like being able to control your foreground, your background, right? When you're in a party situation or in a big, busy, bustling restaurant, and you're able to fine tune your device so it can then focus on that conversation, with the person in front of you. Is that one of the benefits, I would say, or do these devices offer kind of the same thing?
So prescription hearing aids are probably going to do that the best because, again, they've already got the data of your own personal hearing loss plugged in. So it already knows how much gain it needs to apply at different frequency regions throughout the algorithm of that. So it already knows how to do that. Plus, it's going to have a much more customized way of enhancing that sound and being able to interpret what does that sound look like. Does it look like a noise sound? Does it look like speech? Does it look like music? And it's going to be able to make those calculations. There's also a lot of AI built into a lot of prescription hearing aids now that has classified different types of sound environments. And so that information is sort of integrated into the chip of the hearing aids. And so when different sounds come in, then it has that AI based information, sort of a log or a sort of like a library to say, oh, okay, this is what we need to do, and this is what we're going to apply. So you can get very, very precise with a lot of prescription hearing aids, especially in background noise, microphone placement, all of that. You've got, double microphones usually that are looking at sound from the front, sound from the back, and being able to um, displace that so that you get more sound from the front, less sound from the back if background noise is around there. Or it can also look and maintain how much sound is coming from the front to the side and be able to move those microphones around based on that. So there's a lot of things that prescription hearing aids are doing with speech enhancement, with noise reduction, that an over the counter hearing aid is not going to have to that same extent. So there's going to be that limitation. You may be able to turn, on a button that gives you noise enhancement or noise, excuse me, noise reduction, speech enhancement. But it's probably not going to be as customized, again, because you don't have a hearing loss that you have configured with that device. So it doesn't know exactly how much to apply. It just knows that it can go on or off depending on what you choose.
That's fascinating. So really it removes the fumbling around your phone looking for the app while you're trying to have this conversation,
Yeah,
missing part of that conversation until you
right,
open up the app and then hit noise canceling, right? Or
right,
crowded room versus on the elegance, right? And the high technology of having your hearing aid do it on the fly and being able
right.
to calculate those sounds. Absolutely fascinating. Okay, so Dr. Moore, looking at these going like, the price difference, right? Of going, well,
Yeah,
over again, right? Over the counter, it's kind of you get what you pay for.
yeah.
But you can see that technology with the research. Is there any big difference that stands out in your mind as far as like the pro and con versus the other?
Right. So again, with an over-the-counter device, those price points are very attractive. I mean, you can buy them as low as, a couple $100s for a pair. But there are some that can be as expensive as 3,000 or more. And you can get into an entry level set of prescription hearing aids in most places for between 2 and 3,000 as well, with the services that go with it. So I always say, it's important to understand too that when you're buying an over the counter device, you're buying just the device. You're not buying any help, any follow up care, any education that comes with it. You basically are doing this all on your own. So this is why it's considered a self-fitting device. When you're paying a few $1,000s to go into see an audiologist or a hearing instrument specialist, not only are you getting the device, that's only part of that cost, but you're getting the follow-up care associated with that. That means we're fitting them. We're using best practices. We're making sure that they fit appropriately. We're making sure they sound appropriately. We're making sure that they are giving you the proper amount of gain. We will have verified them in our equipment to make sure they're actually meeting spec. We're going to see you for follow-up care to go over how to care for them, how to maintain them, how to use them most effectively when you're with loved ones and in challenging environments. So there's that ongoing care that you get, which is why the cost is what it is, because you're partnering with a healthcare professional that is helping you to not only just giving you a device to help you hear better, but also giving you some education and training to make sure that you have the tools necessary to do the best you can hearing with those devices.
What does a fitting look like compared to an over the counter from a professional?
Right. So when you get an over-the-counter device, it may be something that either fits into your ear. It might have, a little dome or a rubber piece on the end. You may have a few different ones in there that you can put on the right size, and then you put it into your ear and you hope it works. But, if it's too big, too small, then you may have to look at, getting something different. Whereas with a fitting that you get in an audiologist office or hearing care professional's office, we too also have those soft rubber dome pieces we can choose different sizes on that, but we're going to make sure that is that the right size? Is it fitting in your ear properly? When we turn it on that device, are we getting any feedback or sound leaking out of the device? And if so, we're going to make sure that we make sure that doesn't happen, either through programming software, making sure the fit is proper. We can also do custom molded earpieces if that's needed as well. Sometimes people don't do well with just the non-custom earpiece. And so sometimes you need that more customized fitting. So that's part of the difference of picking up something off the shelf, hoping it fits your ears properly. And it may for some people. But if it doesn't, then sometimes you need that extra guidance. And that's where going to an audiologist or hearing instrument specialist can be helpful for that matter.
The audiologist knows the software, the ins and outs, right?
Yes,
How to specifically tweak these hearing aids that are running on high-end AI and algorithms
right,
as it's I want to say scanning, but it's not, but it's taking in your environment and really doing the calculations on how to best convey that sound to you versus, an over the counter that you're really relying on yourself and hopefully
right.
the software that is and I can't tell you how often I look at, software from big corporations and you think, oh my gosh, they have an app for this, and then the app doesn't function properly, right? And so I'm
Exactly.
seeing that as between the two of, your
That's
trained
right.
professional that knows everything about this device, the ins and outs,
Right.
the programming, versus, the user experience of having to do it all on my own.
That's exactly right. And that's the thing too, is that over-the-counter devices don't have programming software that you can use to do the tweaking of it like we can do in our office, because again, we're putting in a hearing loss, which is the prescription basically, and we're generating that prescription for that person's individual hearing loss. So there's things that we can do to really manipulate how that hearing aid is going to sound. An over-the-counter device isn't going to have that option. They're going to have that app, like you said, if that's available. And so again, that app is going to be limited by what is loaded in that app by the engineers that did it. And that's all that can be done. So again, you can just make them louder, make them softer, add a little treble, add a little bass, turn on noise reduction, turn it off, but that's it. You can't get any more specific than that.
I see this as we're having our conversation. I'm going, I wear glasses, you wear
Yep.
glasses.
Yep.
Like, do the professional hearing aids, like, account for something like this versus
Mhm.
the over the counter? Are they big? Are they bulky? Are both devices very small? What's the comparison like again for that
Yeah.
comfortability
For
to be
that
able to wear these
to be
devices?
comfortable, right? So I would say that, the majority of hearing aids fit in the United States now, and actually globally, are ones that fit behind the ear, that have a piece that goes behind the ear, which we call the computer basically, and then a little wire that just kind of disappears right next to the ear with a little earpiece that goes in, and whether that's a non-custom dome or whether that's a custom fit ear mold. Most of them are rechargeable now. So that's probably the most common style that we fit. And because these are prescription hearing aids, because they've got all the research and development dollars behind them, they're always looking at what is going to get the job done. In other words, how much stuff can we put inside this device to do all these things that a consumer wants, from having Bluetooth, from having noise reduction, from having dual chips in there that are constantly analyzing rechargeability, all that kind of stuff, wireless telecoils, you name it. How much can we put in there, miniaturize it, and still get something that's going to be comfortable and small to wear? That's something they're always constantly doing. And because it's a prescription based, it's going to have the money behind that to really, help to make that smaller and smaller to function like that. Over the counter devices, what we've typically seen is some of them look very similar to a lot of the prescription hearing aids that are out there, but they still have maybe a very one size fits all. And they're probably not going to have some of the discreetness that some of the others might have because of that.
So my final question, so, somebody goes into the over the counter, they look at it and they say, wow, this looks comfortable, right? And they fit it.
Right.
And I'm sure that they have, um, a lot of products to choose from. What's it
Right.
like going into with you? Like, do you have a tray that shows multiple sizes? Like what does that look like for me coming to see a professional looking for this device?
Right. So we may discuss, one or two brands, one or two makes when we do a consultation. In other words, we're going to give you some choices, but we're not going to give you so many choices that you get overwhelmed. But we're going to, because again, we have that knowledge and we work with all the different brands, like in our office, we kind of know what each manufacturer does well, what each manufacturer features are going to work well with different types of individuals that come in. So we may recommend, okay, based on your needs, your lifestyle, what we've talked about today, this brand here is going to be the best for you. And so we may show you, we have demos of the different hearing aids that we have that we carry. So we can actually bring in live hearing aids, show you what they look like, have you look at them, touch them, put them on your ears if you want to. And then from there, that kind of gives you that idea of what this is going to look like. We might pick out a color. We may do ear molds if that's what's necessary. So that's typically what we're going to do when you come into our office, is you're going to have an opportunity to actually see those devices and possibly even wear them. In some cases, we can do an appointment for a demonstration where you can actually take them home and wear them in your home for a little while. So we kind of, allow you to sort of do that as well, which again, you're not going to have that opportunity to do that with an over-the-counter solution.
That is fantastic. That trial where you can take them home,
Yep.
experience life, see, if they're a good fit, and if they are great, you're able to continue on. If not, then you look at different models. That is
Right.
fantastic.
Yep. Exactly.
Awesome. Okay, so that was my final question. So, Dr. Moore, how can the viewer get a hold of you for these fittings, for conversation, for consultation, for when they're looking to upgrade their old hearing aids to something with a lot more technology and multiple chips?
So online, we're at sonorahearingcaretucson.com. And we're located in Tucson, Arizona. Our phone number is 520-881-8740. We also are on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the social channels, YouTube as well. So you can find us by going online and giving us a call to set up an appointment for your consultation.